In what seems like an increasing safety concern, there have been a number of food recalls in the past few weeks, and the latest is a nationwide ground beef recall after 15 people became ill with E. coli food poisoning. Joining us right now is Dr. Darin Detwiler of Northeastern University, an expert on food safety. So first, I want to say thank you for being here with us.
Thank you very much.
Now, this is the time of year where food is especially important, right? So food is top of mind. So from beef, carrots, Whoppers, Big Macs, quarter pounders, it feels like everything, toothpaste. We've just got to be careful of all of the foods that we like. Can you talk to us about why this is happening?
Different reasons. One of them being is that when you look at these onions, you look at the carrots, these are typically foods that we don't necessarily cook. And without cooking them, you don't have the consumer being able to add what's referred to as a kill step. So if there were pathogens, properly cooking, let's say an onion, which some people cook, might prevent that pathogen from being an issue. But with the baby carrots, most people literally just open up the package and put a baby carrot into the hands or the mouth of a young child without ever cooking it. I recently talked to someone who was taking these carrots that were part of the recall. They had grated them and put them into a sauce that they were using for canning purposes that was going to stay on a shelf for a long time. So when we have produce involved, especially produce that we don't cook, that's very much a concern. Most of the time, when we are talking about produce that has a pathogen, this is due to contaminated irrigation water. Perhaps the produce is being grown too close in proximity to cattle feeding operations or other situations where the irrigation water is not being properly tested and treated, and thus we get the pathogen into these produce. When we're talking about the meat recalls, we recently had the deli meat recall, and this was due to improper sanitation compliance at the manufacturing facility. I don't know exactly what the cause is with the ground beef recall, but I do want to note that whatever the cause is, this is a company that had another larger outbreak of the same product 10 years ago. So these are things that do happen. We need to be aware of them, and we need to think about what are we purchasing or not purchasing, and how are we treating those things that we do purchase.
Now, Dr. Detwiler, do you think that this is also linked to the increase in testing by the CDC, the fact that we are hearing about it more often and it feels like it's impacting more food products?
There definitely is more testing that goes on by the FDA and by state level activities and by the USDA. So there's different agencies that are involved in testing, and testing, the science and technology involved of testing has gotten better. But the increase in testing does not negate, if you will, the unsanitary conditions at facilities and the proximity to, let's say, where there's a source of contamination for irrigation water. So I think that a lot of this can be seen as, multiple dimensions here. One, yes, there's more testing and there's more communication about recalls and outbreaks. We also have more consumer awareness and questions being raised about recalls. On the other hand, there is a concern out there that the pandemic caused a period of lapsed or at least relaxed inspections that were taking place at food manufacturing facilities, and that kind of downwind, if you will, effect is what we're seeing today in terms of the fact that none of these facilities that have horrible non-compliance in terms of sanitation, none of these situations occurred overnight. Most of these situations occurred over a long period of time and got to this point where it's at this level that we're talking about today.
Now, is our food as safe as it was 5 years ago? We all have family members we've heard talk about, what food used to be like even farther out from 5 years. We've all had those conversations with our family members, but is our food as safe as it was 5 years ago?
I think perhaps in the bigger picture, do we see what percentage of change do we see? I don't know that it's any safer than it was 5 years ago. I also don't know. I will say that I think food safety, as in the action and the people and the culture around food safety, is better than it was 5 years ago. But I think that our food supply chain, our food environment, our ready-to-eat foods, our commercially packaged goods, variations of retail, those are more complicated today than they were even 5 years ago. And the more complicated our food landscape or environment becomes, the more opportunity there is for blind spots. And I think that's what we're seeing today. It is a much more complex supply system than even 5 years ago. And with that complexity comes, with that complexity and with our propensity to want more convenience in our foods, that just increases the risk factors. And I think that's what we're dealing with today.
So now, as Thanksgiving is coming, we'll have, holiday dinners, New Year's Eve. We know how quickly all those things come together this time of the year. What do you think is the best way for the average consumer like you and I to avoid foodborne illnesses and to keep their family and friends safe?
One is take a look at food safety information related to the foods you're preparing. We don't want to have food left out for too long. You should not leave food out for longer than 2 hours. You want to keep hot foods hot and cold foods cold. You want to properly thaw that frozen turkey. That should be done in the refrigerator, and it takes a long time. We're talking about, based on the amount of pounds of a turkey, it could take literally an entire week almost for a very large frozen turkey to thaw out. I'm always amazed when I go to the grocery store the day or two before Thanksgiving. And it's not the people that are running in to get more vegetables or stuffing or something like that. It's the people that are buying that huge frozen bird Wednesday night before Thanksgiving. And I'm like, how can you possibly thaw that out? It's impossible to properly thaw that out in time for Thanksgiving dinner. So you have to think about everything from washing of hands, cleaning the kitchen, the timing of things, how long you leave foods out, proper refrigeration, even leftovers. There's a concern over leftovers. You have Thanksgiving, then you have Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. After Monday, the Monday after Thanksgiving, you should not be eating leftovers that come out of your refrigerator. Anything you want to store longer than that should be stored in the freezer.
And that's really good information, because that's often the question that comes up. You're like, can I still eat this? You start looking at it, you start moving it around with the fork, you start smelling it, you're like, okay. So that's going to be really helpful information for everyone that's going to be cooking and trying to take those to-go plates with them.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up to-go plates. I think going into Thanksgiving with a plan on how to use the leftovers over the next 4 days, and even a plan in terms of sending leftovers home with your guests, is the best way to make sure that you don't have too many leftovers that you can't possibly consume them out of your refrigerator before the end of that 4th day after Thanksgiving.
See, we go in with the plan and then no food goes to waste. Dr. Detwiler, is there anything you want to make sure that our viewers know going into this holiday season, all the feasts and the cooking and food safety, that I did not ask you directly?
We can't be afraid of food, but we can realize that one of the best gifts we can give to our friends and our family and all of our loved ones is being that hero in terms of food safety. You might not wear a cape in the kitchen. Maybe you're wearing an apron or mittens to take hot things out of the stove or whatever. But whatever you're wearing that cape and being that hero in terms of making sure that, again, cook the foods to the right temperature, keep hot foods hot, cold foods cold, don't let foods out too long, and properly store your leftovers. Being that hero in terms of making sure that any holiday gathering, any family gathering is not remembered for all the wrong reasons, that's the best gift you can give those who you really care about.
Absolutely. Everybody will be grateful in the end. Dr. Darin Detwiler of Northeastern University, we thank you so much for your insight and those tips that we know people are certainly going to be writing down and putting to use. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much.